Hello, and welcome back to Path of Exile. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the delay between the last video and this one. I had a Windows lockout problem. An update messed things up apparently. I had to reinstall everything because of a system wipeout. Thanks a lot, Windows. Fortunately, this footage was salvaged. But it does mean I'm going to be doing post-commentary instead of live commentary. I sincerely hope that this will not be a regular thing. Well then, we have a huge chapel to explore. Considering what it took to get in here, it's heavily implied that only the most faithful, the innermost in the secrets of the religion are allowed in, which kind of makes me wonder why there's a small army in here. I know the gameplay reasons, of course, but the best reason I could think of is that it is indeed a very select few. Oriath is just huge. So this is a very small percentage of people. It's large just by dint of raw numbers with the population of whatever this is. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about my build. Now that I've maxed out my block rate, I have a pretty decent proc rate for my Tempest Shield. Whenever you see a particularly thick bolt of lightning jump out, that's because I blocked something and procced the counterattack. It's much easier for me to notice that happening when I'm not controlling things and simply worried about not dying immediately. Speaking of which, those lightning strikes from the priests seem to hit very hard. I maxed out all my resistances quite a while ago, so I believe that it's fair to say that we've reached a point in the game where having full resists is default damage. So if I have 50% instead of 75%, that means I'm taking double damage from something. If I, for some reason, had 0%, I'd be taking quad damage from something. Well, I guess it was going to happen sooner or later.
I like you better this way.
No doubt. Well, it seems that the normal enemies are not causing too much problems. As long as I don't encounter too much of those lightning strike priests, I should be okay. Well, one of the things mentioned by the NPCs is that shortly after I came back, the Templars have even more power than usual, and in particular the High Priest, or I should say High Templar, is now calling himself the incarnation of the god Innocence. Well, I find it difficult to believe that such a claim is completely unheard of in a place as strong in faith as Oriath. Oh, silver coin. Very nice. But I guess we'll find out the truth soon enough. Well, remember the last High Templar we fought? Not only did I almost die, I had to resort to portaling back home. which is very undignified. I happen to dislike that quite a bit, and not just because it breaks up the action. It's... well, I hesitate to say it's a bad habit in hardcore, because anything in hardcore that helps you... oh, that guy's hexproof. Anything that helps you survive is, by definition, a good habit. It's just that I've read that the final confrontation in the game does not allow that sort of thing, so I need to be prepared to do without. I think I mentioned that sometime before. Oh, this chamber. This great hall. This whatever. I love the art. Especially the stained glass windows. Whoever did the art for this place, and a lot of other places in the game, they were not being paid enough. Also, the sort of fences carry the symbol of the faith as well. Lots of little candles all over the place. Just, I am in awe of the amount of work that was put into this. Now, for the enemies. They like to throw fireballs. Of various kinds, although most frequently magma orb. Well, and a few lightning bolts here and there. And those guys who are seemingly made of armor and prayer. That must be what some of the new stuff, because I don't recall seeing much like that even in Rayclast. Wow, that's a lot of them. Also, I believe that sometime around here I realized that using arc more often might be helpful. I have been keeping it in my equipment all this time, so it has been leveling up. But with narrow corridors like this, spark is still best. Oh, hello there. Prayer guards. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything human in there, that's for sure. Of course, it's complete speculation that those prayer guards are new. For all I know, Oriath has been using that sort of thing all the time, and no one knew that because only the extremely faithful even get in there. Ooh, those guys are fearless, though. Well, technically all enemies in Rayclast are pretty much fearless. They'll keep charging in no matter how many of them are killed right in front of them. Then again, I've played a couple of games where there are enemies that will run when a couple of them are killed, and it is the most annoying thing, so maybe I won't complain too much. Also, that fire spell, that short-range one, that's Incinerate, and it's actually extremely nasty when you build around it as a spellcaster. Well, so while we're here, we're going to ignore the lore pedestals, which is a little bit of a disservice because it explains quite a bit about the Oriath religion. But before that, more Life and Chaos Resist. Gimme. Alright, my life has cut up to my energy shield a little bit, which I definitely appreciate. So, this is a story of two brothers, Innocence and Sin. You'll probably notice that this religion is not big on subtlety. Innocence was, of course, always the good child, and Sin was not. Innocence tended to do as he was told and help people out, and Sin would steal from people and lie about it and get other people into trouble over things that he did. Of course, Sin was caught many times and punished, but he still kept doing the things that Sin will do. I mean, if you name your kid Sin, what do you expect is going to happen? Eventually, Innocence felt he had no choice and put Sin to the torch. I think he was burned at the stake or something. It was definitely public, because the next thing that happened was that when Sin was burned, the nearby villagers breathed in the smoke and they got infected and merged into this horrifying amalgamate monster thing, which Innocence also had to burn. Why do I keep saying Purity? Whatever. And after that, Sin kind of becomes the boogeyman of the religion, which is to say, if you do bad things, it's due to the influence of Sin. Did I say Purity becomes the boogeyman? Whatever. Sin becomes the boogeyman. And Innocence is, of course, the thing that they worship and try to emulate. Despite his name, Innocence is definitely not above setting fire to people, so there's that. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot of talk about how Innocence is the father of everything good in Oriath and the world and blah blah blah, and don't be like Sin, and not very much character development in this religious story. The Old Testament actually had quite a bit of interesting characters in it. I'm sorry about that grammar. Also, this Harbinger is causing a lot of trouble. One of the most useful skills for survival is knowing when to run away, it seems. My understanding is that once you get into the really hard content, especially post-game stuff, it is helpful to know when to force quit the game. Because if you force quit when you're about to die, you just are in your the last town you were in when you log back on, and you're just fine. Granted, this is footage I saw quite a while ago, but I suspect that it still holds. Because otherwise people would be dying if they legit lost connection outright, and that would be no good. Also, these are the guys who were throwing artillery at me before. That was very rude. Well. Now, one of the reasons I'm telling you about all this religious stuff and what these things are supposed to signify is that it's going to become directly related to what we have to do in short order. I will say that, of course, the lore tomes have a much more flowery description of the story than I do. But I think that's just how it's supposed to be in general. Once again, whoever wrote these things has a very good feel for how dogmatic religious stuff is supposed to sound. So, respect for that. Wowee. I'm kind of impressed at how good the game engine is about just having this number of bodies on screen at once without slowing down. I mean, my computer isn't bad, but it's still around 5 years old and still seems to handle things reasonably well, especially considering that I'm recording during all this. Holy crap. Well, I also hope that, well, actually I hope that I remember to summon my lightning golem sometime, because I seem to have gone without for quite a while. And I hope that I can find some kind of gem that alters my build in an interesting way in the future. Because, what's Vertici doing here? How did he get here? I mean, yes, he's a master assassin, but no, I'm going to ignore you. I have no time for your shenanigans. So, I don't think I'm going to get any keystone passives on the passive tree that significantly alter what I do. Mostly I'm going to go for simple things like die less and kill things more. Probably with an emphasis on the die less. But support gems, well, there have doubtless been things added to the game of which I'm completely unaware, and I've taken specific effort to not spoil myself in that regard. Because there's nothing quite like finding a new shiny thing that you didn't know about before in these games. Even if you haven't specifically played a Diablo-like, you probably know that feeling from other games if you're watching this. It's a little awkward when you go through a huge dungeon like this and find no gear which could possibly make your build work better than what you have at the moment. Oh, I finally remembered the golem. Hooray. This... Okay, yeah, that seems fairly typical. High Templar Avarius. He's floating. Do people usually float? Well, I don't know. So, Avarius shoots at us a lot. That seems roughly typical of bosses in this game. And, of course, if there's telegraphs, you need to put in extra effort because you will get hit hard. These statues are very important to the encounter. First of all, they are invulnerable to everything, and wow, yeah, definitely don't get hit by those. After they move around for a little bit, they stop, and they will block projectiles of any kind, including those of the boss, which is a very important detail. Whoa, I don't think that's quite true, sir. Also, this kind of summoning seems extremely odd. Usually, from what I've seen, you summon things from the remains of people, or at least armor, or there has to be something. So just summoning all of these energy people from nowhere that's something new. Well, so if you don't have your element resists max by now, I don't know what to tell you, except have fun. Oh, Okay. So two things. First of all, that particular burst of fireballs, it is highly advised to take cover behind a statue for that. They don't look like they hit especially hard from their size and overall shininess, but they do. They really do. The other thing noticeable is he says, "I am your god," which... Okay, that's a bit far even for these High Templar types. They'll say that they're servants of God. They might even say that they hear God in their heads, but directly saying that they are God is a bit much. And it's also saying, "I am the Emperor" is very odd. Well then, the good news is this fight is almost done. Or maybe not. So, Innocence, God Emperor of Eternity. That's who I'm fighting right now. This isn't even the end of Act 5. This is partway through Act 5. Now, it's also worth noting, you've seen how quickly my spark spells kill things along the way here. Like, they mow down lots of... Oh, yeah, that beam. Well, one thing at a time. Even unique enemies don't last too long. So, I want to say this just to emphasize exactly how much punishment this boss can take. Alright, so there's two ways I recommend to deal with the I am the torch beam. One is to hide behind a statue, of course, and the other is you can run around it with the help of a quicksilver flask. Or if you're just close enough, but I prefer the safety of the flask if I can have it. The other thing is that this boss has an energy shield, which is reasonably substantial, oh god, on its own. Right, so, that I am the end explosion. It comes out very fast sometimes, and you saw the damage it did. Also, in God form, it summons unique enemies along with all of those golden people. They're mostly here to recharge your flasks, because they'll just go away on their own if you run away. But I definitely appreciate the flask recharge, don't get me wrong. So, this is about where I figured out that you don't necessarily need the help of a flask to run around the beam, which is very nice. So, thanks to all of these defenses, it's not a short fight. Especially if you haven't put together a decent build for dealing damage. This is why it's important... Oh, here we go. This is why it's important to not only focus on your durability. Durability is nice, but there will be times where you have to deal a lot of damage. Well, the first time through, I wondered how you're supposed to deal with this if you're a melee character. Then I noticed that actually I spend a lot of time very close to this enemy casting spells, so I imagine it's actually not that different. Also, the God Emperor of Eternity just took some time to punch me, and wow, yeah. That could have been worse, yes, but those fireballs do not play around. I'm starting to not care about what you are, Mr. Innocence. Ooh, yeah. That sort of melee burst, that is... well... I don't even know how to describe these things. Also, those statues, aside from dealing a lot of damage, you notice that they slow you by a large portion if they hit you, so... it is not a thing to ignore. Also, as you can imagine, I had huge recording jitters during this fight. I'm kind of surprised that my golem survived as long as it did. And if you don't have a teleportation skill, well, best of luck. Physical classes actually have an equivalent called Leap Slam, which is less flashy than a teleport, but it does the same thing. You are actually invulnerable while jumping, so ouch, ouch. Okay. Oh no, bad place. Could be worse, but still. I always panic when I see that attack. Well, that passive that I got from the class change from the labyrinth, I'm fairly sure it's saved my life a couple of times already. And, well, here we go. Whenever he does that, it basically means a free energy shield recharge for him, which is very annoying for me. Wow. Yeah. For example, without Flame Dash, I definitely would not have been able to escape that... Oh, wow! Yeah. I knew that I was going to get closer to death, but wow. Yeah, getting hit by both the statues and those I am your god fireballs, that's a great way to die. If you want to die, you can just walk into that. Also, it's extremely annoying to have to back off when the enemy is that low on life, but also, why didn't I hide behind the statue there? Oh well. About time. Oh, hello. That's Sin. Hello, Sin. I like you better than your brother already, because you're not trying to kill me. We can talk to him, even. Let's do that. I don't get the chance to talk to a god too often.
Would that humanity could forget all of my kind. Perhaps with your help, that might still come to pass. For now, the blinding light has been dimmed, and darkness floods in to fill the void. The desperate and depraved set a feast for their lord incumbent, Kitava, the ravenous one.
So, remember all those crosses on the ground in blood? Those blood X's in the slave pens? Yeah, those were the signs of Kitava right there.
Should Kitava accept their invitation, there is but one thin sliver of hope for us all. My brother's sign of purity. Look to it in the choking passages of Templar reverence. It shall be your torch when night falls at last.
I gotta find out more about Innocence.
He lives, after a fashion. That pretentious little vessel of his served only to encourage his divine follies. I have procured him a more sensible host, one that should contain his excesses and temper that fragile ego of his. Hear this, brother. From mind of lead to heart of gold, your soul shall be bound, your wrath shall grow cold.
I love how he says basically, sorry for my brother, I know how crazy he gets, I'll try to keep him under control. I think that's hilarious. Well then, I guess we have things to do, don't we? Maybe I should go home, or at least to the equivalent of home around here. Hey, where's that guy who liked Kitava? Oh, he's not here. He's doing other things, of course.
You deserve recognition for what you have done. You've freed us from Templar oppression. Yet I fear you may have defeated the lesser of two evils. Still, take something. You'll be needing it in the dark times to come.
Well, a passive skill gem that makes my spark better, potentially. Yeah, I'll take that. The others are mostly for other skills, like Frostbolt or Magma Orb or, well, stuff that does not apply to my build.
Once Kitava has gobbled up every scrap of Oriathan flesh, sucked every Oriathan bone dry of marrow, he'll turn his endless hunger to Namakanui and the whole Karui archipelago. As you know, the Karui will fight, and they'll fight hard, but they're going to need all the help they can get. And I know of 3 treasures that might just make the difference. They were taken when the Templar raided Namakanui. A whip woven of Hinekora's hair. A tooth that Tukohama ripped from his own mouth. A fishhook that was once the jawbone of Valakor. Together, they're known as Kitava's torments, and lie within the reliquary that borders Oriath Square. I saw them with my own eyes when delivering messages to the scholars there. Please, go to the reliquary and claim those treasures before Kitava's children do.
This is an optional side quest. In most other games, it would be the main focus of your characters for around half the game, but anyway.
But this piece of truth I do have. Utula sensed that very moment when you struck your final blow, when you broke the Templar's power. He turned to me and told me this. Now our king comes to us. He'll be hungry, so very hungry. I shall prepare him a feast. Then he gathered his followers and left. Where's he gone? Oriath Square. You won't need to...
I guess it's worth noting that the name of this act is The Fall of Oriath, not The Liberation of Oriath.
You can ask, but you might not like the answer. I told you so. What more need I say? You really don't have a strong grip on cause and effect, do you? Things replace other things. It's the most fundamental of laws. The larger the thing you remove, the bigger the rush to fill the space that's left behind. Innocence was the nexus of power in Oriath. Remove him and something of equal or greater power was always going to take his spot. Any idiot could have predicted that Kitava was going to be that something. Unless, of course, you thought it was going to be you.
Well, the witch might have thought that. I wouldn't put it past her.
People have talked about the return of the gods since the birth of Oriath. It's a gambit employed by charlatans to fleece the weak-minded and morally desperate. Or so it seemed. Avarius and his Templar drones now greet the dawn filled with power and glorious purpose. Kitava has risen from whatever ethereal cesspit he's been hiding in for the last few millennia. So what let the cats out of their proverbial bags? I'm a scholar, not a prophet. Yet there's one occurrence that absolutely reeks with evidential causality. You killed the beast.
Well, it seems that by killing the beast, or in fact all of the beast-related stuff we were doing back there, we were meddling in powers way beyond our comprehension. I have 3 things to say in my sort of defense. First of all, it's Path of Exile, everyone does that. Second, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And third, once again, this is the witch. If she saw everyone, everywhere, jumping off a cliff, she would consider it fascinating and probably do it herself just to see what it's like.
Tootle.
Well then, let's try to fix this latest, biggest mess that we've caused next time, because we've done plenty this time. I'll see you then. Later.